All right, dude, you're on.
I just mainly want to say that white privilege, I don't believe it's real. Because if you look at certain races in America, especially the Asian and Indian population, they actually make a higher income than white people themselves. And if you look at any of the statistics, such as crime, homelessness, or divorce, the Asian cultures and the Indian cultures are much lower than white people. So I don't see how it's necessarily white people taking advantage of the system, but rather more so the values behind a group of people.
Uh-huh. So there's no systemic oppression, is what you're saying, for specific subgroups, and that there has never been systemic oppression along racial boundaries that may or may not have prevented certain groups from potentially advancing at the same rate that others have.
Do you think there was that? I do think there was oppression, back when slavery existed. You can't deny that.
What about
But I don't.
segregation?
Yeah, no, that existed. But I think in today's society, it's hard to argue that those law or the past laws would necessarily affect other races, specifically Black people. The
Okay.
ways you look
Um,
at different races, even Mexicans have a higher average income than most Black places, and depending on the state also. Um,
so first of all, no, it's not dependent on the state because, like, even though Jim Crow laws were specifically in the Jim Crow South, there was still a lot
and
of
I'm saying,
systemic segregation and systemic disenfranchisement that occurred in the North as well. But even beyond that, um, what would you say if I were to tell you that every single black person who is now middle class or above was in living in abject poverty only 1.5 generations ago?
no, I agree with that, but I don't necessarily think that.
Okay,
Hold
so do you
on, it's
think
an
that one
echo.
and a half generations is necessarily enough time to develop to generate intergenerational wealth across you know beyond like redlining and beyond other systemic tools of oppression like weaponizing the criminal justice system against specific minorities with uh, with legislation or additional penalties for drug offenses like crack cocaine that would have higher um, that would have longer sentences, even though it's virtually the same fucking drug. Things that people have now at this point admitted were to racially oppress black folk. Do you not think that that could potentially also be a preventative reason for why certain races in America have not necessarily been able to achieve the same sort of financial results that others have?
I'm not arguing that America wasn't racist back, one or
What I'm
two, one
referencing
and a
is
half, 2 generations ago.
no. What I'm
Hold on, can I
referencing
say?
is but what I'm referencing, the war on drugs, for example, or the crack cocaine laws, um, weren't 1.5 generations ago. Even they were in our lifetimes. I don't know how old you are, but what I'm referencing is like 80s and 90s. You know what I mean? And also, our criminal justice system is still is still at the very least a two-tiered justice system. You know what I mean? It's still certainly not equal or just. This is something that we talk about a lot. And anytime there's any sort of new preventative measures set in place, like stop and frisk laws that are now deemed unconstitutional, we get new data that shows us that black people are just more targeted than white people, even if it's the crime that they're searching to prevent, or the crime that they're seeking to prevent is something that white people are more likely to commit on average.
Yeah, but hold on. Let me address one point real quick. Right. Okay, thanks for muting. The point that, hold on, there's an echo. Let me see.
Okay,
I'm trying to make it through this
sorry.
part.
Here. I'll lower my microphone. I'll lower my audio so you can hear yourself. Go on.
Right. So the point is say, like, is there enough time, a generation and a half, for Black people to quote become as economically successful as you know white people are in general? Right. The point I'm trying to make is that if you look at different colored races such as Asians and Indians, 1.5 generations ago, 2 generations ago, most Chinese people were actually still in China working crappy farm jobs, building railroads, and working in low education areas, and had really, at the end of the day, pretty shitty
Mm-hmm.
jobs. America, they were able to integrate quickly, follow the laws, and integrate well. And now they're making more than the average white person, and are every
You
aspect you could say
understand
that is
that
white privilege
you
is more
understand
so
that by and
Chinese.
large, immigrants that come into this country, especially now, like in modern times, are more affluent and higher educated than the black folk that you're referencing, right? Especially like the quickest way to disprove exactly what you said is Nigerians. Nigerians, out of any background, out of any ethnic background of this country, have a higher rate of education. It doubles their when it comes to masters and graduates degrees. Nigerians double white people as far as getting doctorates and master's degrees and just higher education. Why do you think that is?
Why do I think that is? I think it's because the ones that come over here are looking to actually integrate into society and to actually
Or
go forward and actually do something.
or the
They're there
ones that
to
are
advance
allowed to
themselves,
come
not to
into our
blame.
country are coming from more affluent backgrounds across the board. And this is not just
I also got to
Nigerians.
think,
This is like first generation immigrants of all sorts.
yeah, but to say it's racist, like America's racist, right? You're basically then those black people should be put at a disadvantage immediately because they're quote black, right? To say that there's white privilege is to basically say like,
Wait,
oh, he's black, he's not gonna
do you
have as
think
much opportunity as a white person.
systemic
Come over
racism?
as
Wait. Let's just clarify something. Do you think that my position is that systemic racism just means a whole bunch of racist people who are racist individually got together and they were like, let's all be racist together? Or do you think systemic racism is something a little bit different? Something that is still certainly nefarious and may be guided by racist people or may be upheld by racist people, but is it institutionalized? Like that sort of disenfranchisement is built literally into the system. So even non-racist actors are inadvertently playing a part in that.
say that there's quote institutional racism. That's basically saying that this country was built to put, colored people at a disadvantage or white people at an advantage,
Okay, by
right?
the way, that's literally what this country was built upon. I don't know if you're aware of this, but that literally was what this country was built upon, brother. You just said it yourself. Like, I mean, chattel slavery, dog. That's like the foundations of the United States as an empire were a consequence of genocide, and then our economy
Okay, hold on. No, no, no.
our
To say that
economy
this country was
literally
built,
let me finish my point. And our
oh, let me finish mine.
and our economy literally was engined by human slavery.
Yes, but to that argument, we also had a war between each other, the Civil War, to prevent slavery. So to say that this country is built on slavery, that's wrong because we went to war about it. So how is this country built on racism when we fought each other for it?
Well, did we fight each other at the inception of the country? Because it seems like everyone in a position of power at a specific point, leading all the way up to what you're referencing, people were in agreement by and large, all the way up to that point. that
They were.
racism should have been preserved, and then still a big chunk of the country, a big chunk of the states, the United States, still were of the mindset that slavery should continue, and then they lost a fight. They lost a fight for it. They fought to death, okay, to preserve their rights to own slaves. And then when they
Hold on.
lost, they still decided,
country
in the
was
South
still-
especially, to codify, to legislate some form of segregation to continue that sort of discrimination.
But to say this country was built on the backbone of slavery and that it was built for slavery and to put white people at an advantage, that's wrong. Because
How could you?
when the Union was first formed, there were 6 states that were quote immediately free states and you could not have slavery. And leading up to the Civil War, there were, why do you think slaves were only 3/8 or 3/5 property? Because everyone was thinking there should be slavery. It was because some states did and did not want slavery.
You do realize, okay, you first of all, I mean, this is a ridiculous argument regardless, because you just your personal side, like the argument that you're advancing, that this is not a racist, this country wasn't built upon slavery, is immediately nullified by the same fucking premise that you used, which is that the 3/5 argument, that is a political argument that was had by northern states. Like, that doesn't necessarily change the fact that, like, they literally did not use they did not view black people as like full human beings.
Right. Okay, but with that, I don't see how you can like sit there and still say
Okay.
that like
So
my
wait, wait,
argument is
wait.
valid.
But what
Hold
do
on,
you have to say
hold
to
on.
that? They're
You let me speak.
3/5 of a human. So they were only 3/5 racist? The country was only 3/5 racist, that like, they were 2/5 fine?
Okay. Also, you're not letting me speak.
Yeah, go on. No, no, I just want you to answer that.
Right. Okay. I don't believe you can sit there and say this country was founded on the premise of racism. I'm not saying the country was not racist. There was racism in the country, but to say America was purposely built to be racist and to put white people above all other races is wrong. You can sit there and you can see the main reason they left was not because, oh, we want black slaves. It was because we want freedom of religion. We don't want to be taxed as much, and we don't like the powerful government of Europe, right? It wasn't we want black slaves, so let's go to America. And also the fact that they then went to war with each other over slavery. I don't see how you can then sit there
Wait,
and say that America's
I
in
said
general.
America's economic backbone was chattel slavery for a while,
But the North was
and a
not.
lot of people fought very hard, to literally to death, to preserve that. So how can you sit there and tell me that that's not an important part? And also, I said America was built upon the consequence of genocide, and then on top of that, slavery was a big part of
I don't
our.
think America was built on the consequence of genocide. It was built on the consequence of
Wait,
poor
what did they do to
taxation
Native
on
Americans?
Europe.
Oh, they just didn't give
Them.
up the land willingly. Is that why?
I'm saying when America was founded, it was not because they wanted slavery. It was because they wanted to get away from taxation and then an oppressive government in Europe. Right. And to say the economy was, quote, built on slavery, yes, the Southern economy was, but you're forgetting the other half of the nation that was in the North that was not funded on slavery. And then also to say, oh, people literally died to preserve slavery. Well, you can turn that around and say people died to disenfranchise slavery, about
Okay.
slavery in the war.
Are
But you can
you?
just
Is
flip that
this the
around on the other
meme where?
side.
But that doesn't change the fact that there was still a significant chunk of people who were not only fine with slavery for a very long time, but a significant chunk of people beyond that also fought to death to preserve that. So to say that that's not inherently racist is really weird. I'm confused.
Okay, but no, to say there was a significant chunk, that doesn't mean it was founded on racism. For it to be founded on racism, it would have to be 100%. The reason
Are
America
we
had to
having a
have been
semantic argument on whether America used to be racist? Because
I've admitted,
let's just stay on the
I've
topic, okay? Let's just stay on the topic,
okay,
because
hold on.
none
Can you
of this
answer one
still
question?
none of this have anything to do with the fact that, like, I mean, it certainly has something to do with the fact that black people still don't have the same equal opportunity, or at least equal footing, when they're starting,
Okay,
right?
hold on. How can you say black people don't have equal opportunity as white people when they can sit there and get into colleges with lower scores, lower everything, just based off the premise of their race, not even the premise of their economic standings?
Okay. So affirmative action is corrective legislation, okay? It's corrective
Okay, but how is that
legislation
not
that
racist?
well, okay. You know
No,
what?
answer that. How is affirmative
Let's
action
go
not
back to the abolition first, and then this will tie into, this is analogous to what I'm about to make, the point I'm about to make about America in general, okay? Who did they offer restitution to once the South had conceded, once they had lost? Did they give
Hold on, no.
No,
Let's go answer the
who
question.
do they
How is
offer
affirmative
restitution
action
to?
not
Did they offer money to the black folk that were newly freed in order to say, "Hey, you know what? Sorry about all the racism, but sorry about all
I
the
haven't mentioned
racism, sorry about all the
anything.
slavery. Here, let's give you what you deserve. You worked for this country. You fucking built this country on your hard labor. Let's give you guys at least, some property or whatever."
Hold on. Can you point to one form of legislation that directly
Wait, can you
ties
answer
a
my
law?
question? Can you answer my question, though? Did we give it to the white folk?
I asked you this earlier.
Did we give reparations to the white folk or the black folk after we freed the black folk?
Fine. You will not. You're not answering my questions.
But you're
Every time
literally
I-
not. But you're
no, no, no,
literally
no.
not answering my question.
With the completely opposite question. No. Name one piece of legislation in America that is directly tied to race other than affirmative action, and one that ties directly to black people or non-white people. Affirmative action is the only one.
1964, the Civil Rights Act. That was a pretty
No,
good one.
today, as of today.
Oh, like as of yesterday? Is that what we're doing now? Because, like, you don't like the facts that I'm presenting to you when we're having a historical conversation about racism in
Well, you can
America?
no. racism in America today.
Like,
Can you sit there and say America's quote racist when the only laws out there are the ones helping black people and non-white people? Why is it right that Michelle Obama's kids have a better chance of getting into college than some trailer park kids just because their kids are black?
okay,
Answer
first
that.
of all, if we're gonna have a conversation surrounding class, I'm certainly with you there, brother. I mean, look, we as someone who has a Marxist perspective, I talk about class inequality quite often. I don't know if you follow enough of my commentary to know that or not, but we need to go back to an element that is necessary for you to understand. The reason why we have affirmative action, which is not the best form of corrective legislation, the reason why we have that is because we did not offer any sort of financial compensation to black people. And you know who didn't do that? The North didn't fucking do that after they won the Civil War. So how can you sit there and tell me that black people totally had a fucking fine deal after slavery
You're doing
ended?
it again. You're answering my question with a totally different question.
Wait, I'm not giving. Wait, I what's your question? Like, I don't understand.
You don't even know. I asked you, how is it fair, or how is affirmative action not racist when you can sit there and say Michelle Obama's kids
Because it's
have a better chance of
corrective.
getting
Because
into
it's
college?
corrective. Because it's
No.
corrective
You can say it's
legislation.
correct. How is that not racist? How is that not racist? If a white person had advantage, it'd be racist.
White person
If
do
any
have
other
advantages
person-
when it comes to getting into these institutions. You understand that, right?
No,
It's
they
called
don't.
legacy
No, they
admission.
do not.
It's called legacy admission. If you were to truly make this an equal system, you would eliminate legacy admission. But if you did that, a whole lot of white folk would not be able to get into these fucking stupid colleges. Just so you know that, brother. You understand that, right?
If you look at most public states, they have top percent rules to get into colleges. In Texas, it's the top 10% can likely get into.
Are you
going to
keep narrowing the definition until you get to a point where it's like, oh yeah, well, in this really, really fucking narrow definition,
Okay,
it
but
sure seems weird. If you're not going to
you have
acknowledge
yet
the
to-
historical
you've yet to
necessity,
answer
if
my
you're not going to
question.
acknowledge the historical reason why there is an absolute necessity for some form of corrective legislation because we did not offer reparations to black people after chattel slavery was over, then how can I have this conversation with you? You don't understand. You don't acknowledge the historical roots for why this legislation is a necessity. It's
Why
not
is
the
it based
perfect. It's
off
not
of
a
race
perfect
and not
legislation.
economic
It's not a
status?
perfect action. I'll give that to you. But that doesn't mean, and also, by the way, white women benefit greatly from affirmative action more than any other race or any other gender, just so you know.
But black women benefit more than white women. How could you argue that?
Okay. Regardless, no, I'm talking about in regards to their personal
I've not answered a
wealth.
single question I've asked.
The question that you asked me was the question that you asked me is how is affirmative action not racist? So I'm giving you the reason for why it is not racist.
Quote correct and not quote racist to sit here and say, there's white privilege when Michelle Obama's kids are more likely to get in
Wait,
race, not economic class, than some trailer park white kids.
Wait.
Worse education.
You understand that?
No.
Okay, Barack Obama
Cannot
himself
answer
has
that.
literally mentioned that. Just so you understand, that is not necessarily the reason why I said this corrective legislation is not potentially the best possible thing that we could have done, but it's still something, and it's still obviously not like it's still obviously not a perfect solution. But that doesn't necessarily mean that like it is not an absolutely fucking. It's not at least something. You know what I mean? It's.
No, I don't, because it's racist. It is the definition of racist. It is a law based on someone's color.
Okay. If you think that any sort of protective or corrective legislation to right previous historical wrongs is racist, then this is a very dumb conversation to have.
No,
If you
what I think is
refuse to
racist is
acknowledge
whenever
the
there's
historical
law-
necessity, if you refuse to acknowledge the material conditions in which black people have had a shitty hand when it comes to surviving in America up until literally yesterday, basically, and of course that pressure has decreased over periods of time. But like, if you can't acknowledge that, then why are we even having a conversation? It's just you're applying flat logic to something and refusing to look at the historical necessity for why this legislation exists in the first place. So your ignorance in this conversation doesn't necessarily change the reality. And I'm trying to be open-minded, and I'm trying to fucking I'm trying to give you an example as to why these sort of actions have been taken, and even acknowledging that they're not perfect solutions.
Okay, but that's a good way to spin it and to make what I'm saying
I'm
look
not
bad.
spinning.
But
I'm not. I'm
no,
giving
you
you.
are.
I'm giving
Because
you
you keep saying
reason.
that same thing. I've given you an example of how affirmative action and how laws in America are, by definition, racist. Yet you then sit there and turn around and calling me ignorant, when the truth is the law is the law. It is racist. Black people have an easier opportunity to get into colleges. They can get loans easier because of their skin color.
Oh my
There are
god.
government loans that go out to people of
It's
color
called
to start
corrective.
businesses that
It's
white people
called
do not have access
corrective
to.
legislation,
All
and
you
it's
can do is
not
throw out definitions.
necessarily
You can't
as
actually
good
acknowledge
as
that
giving
the law is
reparations to
racist.
black folk. If you want to give reparations
Okay,
to black people
okay.
right now, I'll concede that we should just change fucking. We should stop affirmative action. How about that?
Okay, how much, if you think money, like past economic wealth, is the key to quote success in America, how much money should black people get, regardless of their economic status
Oh,
today?
now we're talking, buddy. All right, this is good. So, one, you have to readjust it to inflation, and two, you should try to figure out how that sort of wealth would have accumulated at this time. And the fact that you understand that this is an extremely complex equation shows me that you have the capacity to understand that black people should have been given this opportunity but weren't, and therefore that sort of wealth was stolen from them for almost a century.
Okay, so do you think Michelle Obama should get the same amount of money as some crackhead black lady on the side of the road?
Whoa, 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 whoa. What is this, like, crackhead black lady fucking meme, dude? We're not doing the FBI crime data 4chan bullshit, okay?
No.
What the
Answer
fuck
the question.
is this?
Should
What the
no? I'm
fuck?
saying
Wait, no, I'm not going to answer any fucking question off of, like, dumbass memes that you're making. If you want to
no,
have a genuine conversation with me where
should
where
every black
you
person get the same
demonstrate that
amount
you
of
have the
money,
capacity
regardless
to
of their
fucking
economic
understand.
status? Should every black person get the same quote reparations status and their like quote contribution to society?
Sure.
My point of that is a crackhead.
Yeah.
Okay. Why?
Yeah, 100%. Also, stop fucking saying, like, crackhead. Like, what do you mean?
It's not racist. Saying crackhead is not racist.
Dude, you're regurgitating every fucking poll meme out there right now, dude. I mean, we haven't gotten to, like,
racist?
we haven't got. I mean, it literally
Why
is.
why shouldn't I say it? Why shouldn't I say it?
Okay. All right, buddy. Are we gonna? Have you understood the reasons, the historical necessity for affirmative action, even though it's not
you
the
have not
best form
addressed
of
how
corrective
Asians and
legislation?
Indians are doing better than white people, how affirmative action is not racist, and how yet black people that quote have been successful, you don't acknowledge them, and white people that have fallen classes, which happens very often.
Wait. I do
Moving up and
acknowledge
down.
white people that have a hard time dealing with today's economic realities. You understand that, right? Are you trying to talk to a straw man, or do you genuinely want to hear my perspective on this? Because I think class inequality is a massive problem. It is an all-encompassing problem, but beyond that, racism also, or systemic racism or systemic disenfranchisement, has an opportunity to compound on top of that that class struggle. You get that, right?
All I'm saying is that you have not actually been able to answer any of the questions I have. All you've done is
Are
either
you
switch
just going
the
to keep
topic.
repeating
Can I
that as
speak?
though I'm not
Can I
fucking
speak?
genuinely trying to offer you a different perspective and taking you seriously rather than just like some fucking troll?
I'm not trolling because I'm actually giving you answers. I'm just talking about topics you don't like.
No, I love talking about this topic. That's why I brought you on, and that's why I said, let's have this conversation, random person who is afraid to reveal their identity on here. Like, if I was afraid to have this conversation, I don't think you and I would be having this conversation right now, right? This is my platform, after all.
Then can you just answer why first generation or second generation Asian Americans are doing much better than those?
Let's go back
like
to the
black
dialogue
people?
tree. You're more comfortable there. Got it. Okay, go on. Ask me the question. First generation and second generation Asians, like, what's up? What is it?
They have less crime, higher education, higher income than white people.
Why do you think crime? Okay, why do you think crime happens? Let's analyze it together. I have an answer for you, but I want to arrive at it with you. Why do you think? What are the structural reasons why crime happens?
The cultural thing.
Oh, you think crime is a cultural thing? Okay.
Okay, no. Why does Japan have the least crime out of any country?
I don't know. Are we talking about Japan now? Like, what is
Because
this?
it's
Are you a
culture.
race realist, dude? We're not having a
It's-
fucking conversation like this, are we? Japan also has the
No,
highest
that-
fucking suicide rate. Who gives a shit? Japan is Japan. We're
that-
talking about America. Is it because of
we're talking about
anime?
crime.
Wait, is
No, we're
Japan?
talking-
Does Japan have a lower rate of crime because of anime and hentai? Culture, right?
No, see, this is what you do. I say it's culture. Say it's Japan, and then you say no. You spin it into something to make me look like a fool. When the
Because
truth
this is a
Japan has the
foolish.
least-
Because Japan is a foolish goalpost to bring up in a conversation that we're having about America and crime in America.
Look at Japan, Singapore, and South Korea. They have the least crime out of.
Why
any other
are you?
countries.
Why? But okay, so does Switzerland. Who gives a fuck? Like I don't understand. Why are we? Are we just naming
Culture.
countries now? Like what difference does this make about American crime? Do you care about crime in Japan? Are you about to move out there? Do you want to hear my perspective on it, or do you want to have a
Wanna hear
conversation
my
about
perspective?
crime in America?
Okay, your question was what causes crime, and I said it's culture, and then I'm providing examples. I'm providing valid examples, and you're trying to shut them down.
No, give me an example of why culture, like American culture, or is culture a substitute for race for you? That's what I'm trying to understand. Like,
I would think most black people out there would say they agree there is a quote black culture.
uh-huh.
You look at
What does
black
that have
culture
to? What
in
does that have to
general,
do with anything? What,
you come in with the mindset that they are at a disadvantage, that they can't make it to the top, that they need to go out and steal, and they get involved in gangs. Why are black
have you
people
met
primarily
any
involved
black
in
people?
gangs?
Like, where is this meme coming from? Like, you sound like
Well,
someone who has literally
answer
been
that.
around zero black people. Do you have black people coming up? First of all, it's anecdotal regardless. Even if one black person came up to you and said, "Hey, dog, listen, you know, I have to steal, dude. I have to steal to get ahead. I'm black." Like, this is, first of all, it's a fake conversation regardless because it's such a ridiculous fucking meme. But secondly, even if it was a real conversation that you have with one black person, that would still be anecdotal information. Don't you think
Why is the highest
that there
percentage
are
of drug dealers
material
black
reasons for why crime occurs? Don't you think that there are structural inequalities that allow crime to fester in areas? Don't you think that it's maybe a consequence of the wealth disparity among black people and white people? Or do you think it's just culture? And if it's just culture, then why is it not culture across the board? Why is it that wealthy black folk are not committing crimes at the same fucking rates as poor black folk? Do they have a different culture then? And if that's the case,
Yes.
then you have the capacity to understand that it's something beyond culture and that there's a qualifier there, and wealth is a significant factor in that. In whether it be changing your culture, right? Whether it be changing black culture when they're wealthy black people, apparently they have a different culture than poor black people do. So you're literally admitting that there is a different signifier even in your own argument.
No, I'm saying that in quote traditional like hood black culture.
What is traditional
people-
hood black culture? I mean, let's not get into that. You're gonna fucking say some racist ass shit.
Can I speak? I'm saying hood quote black culture. They go into the mindset of I'm not going to go to college.
But you don't know
I may or
anything.
may not-
But you don't know that. You've never met a quote
But do you
unquote
know?
traditional
How do you
hood
know?
black person. You're literally memeing off of like Jared Taylor fucking statements, dog. Come on.
Yeah. How are you to assume what I do and do not know?
Because of the way you sound like an uneducated dipshit. That's why. Like that's why I'm making a pretty
See, this
pretty
is the
fucking
traditional
obvious
argument. Oh, well, you're uneducated.
because you
you're-
literally said hood culture. Because you literally said and only people who have oh god, okay. The only people
Yeah, why
that
do you think the
use
term
terminology
that's
like
so
that,
good?
the only people that use terminology like that, I'm centering myself again. Sorry, I'm calming myself. The only people that use terminology like that are people who are, and by the way, I'm not even gonna blame you personally for saying this sort of stuff, even though other people would. You've been
I don't think it's bad
inundated
to
with
say.
this sort of messaging. You've been inundated with this sort of stereotypical
black
messaging,
culture.
and that's
get
why
this-
it's guiding your perspective on black people.
Okay, but how do you think these slang terms came up? You think white people created the term that's hood or that's gangster? No, it came from black culture. It rose up and it became popular terminology through the black people. They integrated it. They're the ones saying it. It is black culture that
What
came
does
up
that
with this.
have
It's not the white
anything to
people.
do with whether or not there are more important factors in whether a black person could go to college or not than black culture?
have black people can get into college easier. They have an advantage.
Okay, just because black people can get into college easier because of affirmative action, or some black people can get into college easier, does not necessarily mean
All
that
black people, all black
that the
people.
bottom
No,
of that equation is the fucking same. Especially when it comes to redlining, and especially when it comes to, as a consequence of redlining, the lack of public education, or the lack of infrastructure, the lack of social opportunities that black people have in comparison to other races.
How do black people have less social opportunities and less quote education than that? It's all funded by public schools. So I don't see how you can say they have less, quote, social
Exactly.
opportunities.
How are public schools funded? Chicago is a perfect example of this. The Chicago public school system, okay? The Chicago public school systems currently have, I think, 90% of the entire state's black and Latino student population. They also have 70% of the entire. They also have 70% of the entire state's student population, and yet they only get 60% of the funding. I wonder why. It's very strange. What?
The property taxes that go towards
how does that factor in though? If like, I'm not talking about property taxes. I'm telling you, I'm trying to help you understand that those institutions that black people grow up with, especially in places like Chicago, are impoverished. So that is not a fucking, like, a kid growing up in Chicago does not have the same starting point that a kid such as yourself, and I don't know where you grew up in, or where you, I'm not going to make any assumptions, or a kid in fucking, even, let's use Destiny's son, Nathan, in Omaha. A kid like Destiny's son has. Like, he lives in Omaha, he's wealthy, he's able to fucking move and go to a wealthier district so he can put his child through a wealthier fucking school, a public school, as a consequence of that.
To come back to that, a lot of states, and Illinois included, have percentage rules to get into college. If you're in the top 10,
dude,
25%,
you're fucking, but like, you're avoiding the bottom part of that equation and only focusing on college admissions. A lot of people don't even make it to college. This is a massive problem. And if you don't try to fucking address the actual part, the beginning part of that.
How is it a white person's fault
what?
that black people do not make it through high school? Systemic racism that black people do not make it through high school. When they, like you said, are going to schools.
It's not one person. It's not white people's fault. It's the fault of the system. The system is technically, if the system is led by white people, then yes, white people have contributed to that systemic racism. But that doesn't mean that it's like all white people's fault.
Black people don't get through high school. How is that at any way racist towards anybody else?
What kind of a high school is easier to graduate out of, you think? One that has to shut off doesn't even have access to fucking educate the children 5 days a week, that doesn't have the best fucking possible teachers, that doesn't have the best fucking possible textbooks to offer these children? What child, like, white or black, no matter what color that fucking child is, if they go through that high school, they're gonna have a much harder time graduating. They're gonna have a much harder time getting into fucking college. You understand that, right? Do you not understand that?
No. Can I answer? So what I'm saying is that there are percentage rules to levelize that playing field. The quote rich white school, it's going to be much harder to be in the top 10% than it would be to be in the top 10% at this black school at the same education level.
Wait, dude, you keep going back to the same fucking, you keep going back to the same dialogue option. If you can't hear the reasons for why the bottom is not equal, then you're never going to be able to understand what I'm trying to say.
How can you say it's easier to graduate and to get into college at a quote difficult white school than it would be at a, and sorry, it's echoing again.
Wait, what?
It's echoing. It's hard to talk.
Okay. Yeah, I'll turn it down even more. Go ahead.
Whenever you want to say, it's easier to get into graduate or go to college from a rich white school, it's actually not, because it is.
Wait, because of affirmative action, it's not. It's tell me it's easier to fucking grow up in Chicago, in the south side of Chicago, at the Chicago public school system, where you fucking have textbooks that are like 20 years old, where your teacher doesn't give a fuck because like they're literally punishing your teacher by sending them to the South Side. Tell me how a rich white child who's getting the best possible opportunities in education and extracurricular activities on top of that, tell me how that fucking white kid is having a harder time getting into a better college, especially if the likelihood that that white child's parents also most likely have legacy admissions in whatever fucking college because they most likely fucking went to a college themselves. Tell me how it's much easier. Tell me how it's much easier for that black kid growing up in that fucking public institution to get to any fucking college just because of affirmative action.
The work at, I'm assuming it's me. Let's just say I'd gone to school there from kindergarten. Because me and who I am today, I would have a much higher work ethic than most of those kids there, and I would absolutely whip their ass and be in the top.
What do you mean much higher work? You have no idea what work ethic is. We're talking about material realities, okay? But and then you're fucking.
You're saying how can? No, I'm talking. It goes back to culture.
No, because, but I'm telling you it's not. And even you yourself have admitted that it's not when you understand that, like, black culture, when it's wealthy black people, are different than poor black culture. So obviously there are differences between that two culture. So that means that there are other qualifiers. That means that if you're wealthier on average, your culture is different. So I'm turning your argument in its head so you understand that there are certain parts in your brain that still have the opportunity to comprehend what is going on, but you're so focused on fucking dog whistling with this culture nonsense that you can't see beyond your own talking points.
Can I speak? Can I get 10 seconds of speaking it? Right to what you said, there's a rich black culture and a poor black culture. The poor black culture goes into
I'm working off of your own premise.
There you go. Thank you. I'm not going to go to college. I'm not going to graduate high school. Whereas the rich black culture is saying, I am going to go to college. I am going to graduate high school. That's the difference. It's I'm not going to go to jail. I'm not going to sell drugs. I'm going to do good. Whereas the poor black culture is going to sit there.
Okay, where are you getting that information from? It's really hard to have this conversation with someone who's just using like stories and anecdotal evidence when I'm giving you like empirical evidence and I'm actually dealing in facts and trying to develop a better understanding for you, trying to fucking build the parts that you maybe didn't necessarily learn, so that we can have a conversation on equal footing. And you keep going back to this like mythical black culture. So where are you getting your information from?
I work at a company with multiple black people, and I've talked to them about this specifically and how they have siblings who are poor and broke. Yet now they are out there working, making a lot of money because they had a different mindset than their friends.
Do you not know what anecdotal evidence is? You know that that's an anecdote, right? Do you know what anecdotal evidence is?
Situation in which that happened. You ask where I'm getting my info from, I tell you.
Okay, so you admit that this is anecdotal evidence.
I'm saying that it's every single black person I've talked to that's been, quote, successful.
Again, that's still, have you talked to every single black person in America? Or have you conducted a professional study that is sourced by multiple scholarly journals? Because if that's not the case, because the information that I'm giving you about structural realities or the information that I'm giving you is backed by evidence. The information that you're retaliating back with your counter argument is just pure anecdotal. It's just, I have a black friend and he told me black people do this.
It's not a black friend. It's
multiple. Sorry, you have multiple black friends in the multitude.
Work in Chicago.
What? Okay, it doesn't matter where you work. It's still anecdotal. No. You understand that. Do you know what anecdotal is? Do you know what anecdotal evidence is? I'm giving you enough time to Google it on your own so you can come back and be like, no, I'm completely aware of what anecdotal evidence is.
This is what everyone does with these arguments. They take it and they try to make you look stupid by picking out certain little points when they refuse to actually address and answer the questions.
But why would I answer an anecdote? That's like me saying, well, I have a couple black friends who told me that black culture is actually very industrious and they work very hard, but it's only because of racism. If I was going to retaliate with another anecdote, we would just go back and forth with anecdotes. We would just be swapping anecdotes over and over again, and no one would actually have a serious conversation. I'm not trying to make you look stupid. You yourself are making yourself look stupid with your inability to understand what I'm trying to communicate with you.
I don't think you're trying to understand what I'm trying to communicate.
No,
I'm saying you're
dude.
giving me
No.
examples.
Okay,
And
dude.
I'm asking you questions and you don't
Your
answer them.
only reaction is, I have a couple black friends who told me this is exactly how it is. So
No.
that
I
is
pointed to
anecdotal
laws.
and
I
therefore
pointed.
inconsequential in this argument. Give me actual fucking evidence.
I was saying earlier, affirmative fucking action is racist. You say,
No,
oh,
that's a
it's a
statement.
correctional law.
That's your perspective, and that's the
It's not.
conversation that we
Okay,
started
hold on.
off
Can you
on.
define racism?
Anecdotal
Let's define
evidence is different than that. I mean, it's like empirical evidence is different than just your perspective. I know that the Ben Shapiro and the Steven Crowder memes don't necessarily cover that side, but if you were to use some of the critical thinking skills that maybe you learned in one of your nice, wealthy, white high schools that you grew up in, where you developed your work ethic, you would have probably a more productive conversation with me right now.
Hold on, really quick. Let's define racism.
What?
Define racism for me.
Oh my god. Oh, this is so frustrating. Okay, it's being prejudiced towards someone on the basis of the color of their skin or their ethnic background. Jesus Christ, dude. Okay.
Okay, stop right there. How is affirmative action not racist? It is discriminating against people
Dude,
based
you're
off the
like
color of their
your
skin.
inability to fucking understand.
Your inability to answer that question proves you're not making a valid point.
What are you? I did answer the question. I answered it like 35 times at this point. It's not racist. Affirmative action is not racist. And the reason for that is the Civil Rights Act is also not racist. If you were to apply this weird fucking flat logic, you could also say that the Civil Rights Act was racist. You could also say that abolishing slavery, if it specifically focused on one race and deemed it unconstitutional, that would be racist. That's flat logic that you cannot apply into this instance, because this is corrective legislation for righting the wrongs of history, okay?
Okay, but you just define racism as something like singling out a group based off of the color of their skin or ethnic background. But then you say affirmative action is not racist when the only basis it has on it is their color.
Do you think the Civil Rights Act was racist?
Removing slavery? No.
No, Civil Rights Act, ending Jim Crow laws and whatnot, because that also singled out specific races, or it discontinued racial segregation. You understand that, right? Like, that's still, like, all of these arguments, of course, are surrounding race, because they are correcting the wrongs of history that were originally intentionally racist or intentionally racially fucking structured.
Jim Crow laws were taking a race that had been singled out and then applying, quote, common law to all races. It wasn't taking, quote, black people and then giving them white laws. It was taking white laws and common laws.
No, the common law was white laws, so technically, in its effect, it was giving black people white laws.
Okay, but then couldn't you say that affirmative action is giving people white laws that are against them?
Affirmative
It's
action.
giving white people black laws?
Affirmative action is, albeit not perfect, one form of corrective legislation that could potentially even the playing field. Just because it is racially charged, I guess, in your perspective, does not necessarily mean that it is prejudicial, or that does not necessarily mean that it's unconstitutional, and it certainly doesn't mean that it's bad. Okay?
I said it was bad. I'm saying it's racist.
Do you not think racism is bad? If you think it's racist, then you think it's bad.
Racism. But I do think that the law itself is racist, and I actually do think affirmative action is bad. I don't think it correctly addresses what it's trying to address. I think the point of it is good, but I don't think it implements it correctly.
Oh, so you would write better legislation. Go ahead. Tell me how you would write it.
I'll look at the economic status, regardless of race, and then I would distribute different college standards.
So what are we going to do about segregation and discrimination that exists to this day, though? Like, how are we going to correct that?
Give me an example.
How are we going to right the wrongs of slavery, the fact that we didn't give any reparations to black folk in the aftermath of slavery, and then in the Reconstruction era still used racism or racial discrimination as a primary fucking dividing factor between black people and white people, and using Jim Crow laws? Like, how will we right that wrong? Or is it
To do
easier to
that-
just not think that any of those things happened and that, you know, black people just want too much? Is it easier to feel that way?
Oh, but I think it is important to look at other cultures and how they've integrated into American society, and then to see that it's not just, all
Wait,
non-white
did we?
races have gone
Oh,
down the
I'm
shitter.
sorry. Did we? Wait. You're right. I guess I must have missed the part where we took first generation Chinese immigrants and we took first generation immigrants of other cultures, and we also fucked them over with Jim Crow laws. I guess that was the part I must have. I guess that's the part I
No,
must have
to your
missed in
point.
history
Exactly.
lessons that
Exactly.
you got
No.
access to.
Exactly what you're saying. We took Chinese people, we fucked them over Jim Crow laws, and now they've come back into American society and have done better than white people.
Wait, you understand that the specific targeting of black people was the specific targeting of black people, right? Like that's not. It didn't. I mean,
taking your
sure.
words.
Were
I'm
other
taking your
races
words.
were other races impacted? Absolutely. Were they slaves?
Chinese
Absolutely
impacted.
not. Were they segregated in the same way that black people were? No. And also,
talked about
I
how the
already gave
Chinese
you
came
the
over
I already
first
gave you
gen
the
Chinese
reason
and we
for
fucked them
why I already gave you the reason why first generation immigrants actually oftentimes perform better than US born citizens. And the reason for that is because more often than not, and this is the case in my fucking situation as well, coming here at the age of 18, we come from more affluent backgrounds. Traveling to America and upending your entire life is a huge financial decision. And a lot of people aren't coming on like little fucking dinky boats anymore. And that's why they have an upper hand. When they come to America, they come from higher fucking income levels than immigrants did in the past, like the Irish folk or the Polish folk or whatnot.
Applying a higher
Chinese
level
were
of income.
indentured servitudes, and they certainly also had separate rights, but it wasn't slavery, and they weren't fucking stolen from their homes.
So it seems to me like you're applying a higher level of income.
Yes, I think
Is the
that
result
this all goes back to and then this is going to be the Marxist slipping out of me, but we can apply historical materialism to everything that we're having. Every conversation that we're having right now. I genuinely think that your economic background or your intergenerational wealth greatly advances your chances, is a significant reason for why you have a better future. Okay?
Why would we not implement laws if that's truly what you think? This goes back to affirmative action.
Wait. No, go on. Finish your thought.
Why would we not implement laws that are based off of economic status rather than the color of your race in certain laws? And how is implementing a law based off of race not racist?
Wait. You want to? So you're saying that you want to implement laws? You're saying that you want to implement laws
No, I'm not
based
saying
on
that, but I'm saying if we are
redistribution of
going,
wealth based on class?
No, that is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that
just
if we are going to have
I
these,
just explain it to me then, because I certainly didn't understand your perspective then, because it seemed to me like you made
I'll-
that argument.
you are applying a higher level of income, intergenerational success. So if that's the case, then laws such as affirmative action, why would we not tag admittance into college based off of one's economic background rather than race?
No, I agree with you. I think that class should absolutely be a significant factor. I think some serious redistribution of wealth should happen in this country. And I'm certainly glad that you also have the same perspective that I do.
Do not. But how much
I
money?
mean,
should
it seems
someone
to
be
me
able
like you do. It seems to me like class is you have it within you, my friend. You have an understanding of class struggle, and you're mentioning it right now. When you say that you want to do this along class lines rather than race, that is.
I don't think there should be any laws.
You don't think there should be abolish all laws?
No, I don't think there should be any laws relating to class or race.
Wait, but you just said that. Wait.
No, I said that if we are going to have laws about it, that we should not do it based off of race, because basing a law off of race is racist.
So you have no interest in in providing any sort of restitution, whether it be poor white folk that have been exploited for centuries, or whether it be poor black folk that were pushed into slavery. You have no interest in restitution at all. You just want to fucking end affirmative action. So this is just a conversation about your personal feelings about affirmative action and your inability to understand the material necessity for a corrective form of legislation in this regard.
You're saying, you're talking as if it is needed, but that is a personal opinion to yourself. It is not an objective
It's not. It is not a
idea.
personal opinion if it's rooted within historic
Yes, it
evidence.
is. If you and I disagree, that means it's a personal opinion for both of us.
Yes, but your personal
Otherwise, it
opinion
would be
might
a
be
fact.
that the world is. Your personal opinion might be that the Earth is flat, and my personal opinion is that the Earth is spherical. Does that mean that your personal is this is just a petty disagreement, or do you think one person is right and the other person is wrong in this instance?
That has proof. You cannot prove, quote, institutional
I just
racism.
did. I literally did. But you're not listening to me.
I don't think you're listening to me also. You're just trying to shut down everything I say rather than...
No, I'm giving. I'm
believe
not
actually
even. I'm
listen.
trying to be understanding, and I'm trying to give you, like, I'm trying to equip you with the tools, with knowledge, so that you can perhaps form a better argument next time around when we have this conversation, if we will ever have
me
this
ask you a
conversation
question.
again. I'm giving you
How much-
the necessity for affirmative action laws. So you can turn around and tell me that's not true. But now the burden of proof is on you to prove to me that everything I've told you about slavery and segregation and systemic disenfranchisement and the fact that leads to worse outcomes in general for black people, or a worst fucking starting point for black people across the board than whites, you now have the burden of proof to disprove all of those claims that I made are historically inaccurate, or that you have a different data set that you're working off of that me and other fucking sociologists and political scientists have somehow not been able to see up until this point.
Yeah. My disagreement with that would be that there are black people, a significant amount of black people, that have gotten out of the, quote,
Okay.
of black culture that has put them in it.
Okay,
And that there
just
are white
because some
that
people
have
go
fallen
beyond the
classes.
mean does not mean, like, we're dealing with statistics, okay? So statistical irregularities does not necessarily. Are you familiar with the concept? Are you familiar with the concept of the exception, not the rule? Like, this is
Yes.
like outliers that do not necessarily mean that the rule does not exist.
I know what you're talking about.
Okay. So what you're referencing are outliers. There are people who, of course, there are still in America.
If you were to statistically
Despite
look at
all
it,
of
though, it would
this,
not be an
despite
outlier.
all of this,
Statistically
despite all of
speaking, it
the
would
fucking
not be an
segregation,
outlier.
and despite all of the problems, yes, there are still black people who have had the capacity to prevail beyond all of that, okay? But that doesn't mean that by and large this isn't a systemic issue for the overwhelming majority of black people.
Okay, my question to you then also, how much should a person be able to make?
What?
How much should a person be able to make?
Does this have wait. I don't know. It depends on what they're doing, but what are they what is this off of?
right
Like, what does this
there,
have
it
to do with
depends on what
the
they're doing.
conversation that we were just having?
How much should a person be able to make? Should they be able to make $10 million?
I don't know, dude. This is a much more complex conversation to have that has nothing to do with what we were talking about before. What is this pivot?
No.
Can you please tell me? Can you please tell me what the reason is for why? Like, give me more specifics. You need to, like, tell me what you mean.
Because we're talking about how we need to give black people restitution. Well, how much should we give them,
Reparations.
right? Reparation, yes, sorry.
I
Reparations.
don't know. We would have to figure out. We would have to come to terms with how much money we are supposed to give back to black folk that were certainly a part of slavery, that were brought over here. We have to figure out. We have to adjust it to inflation. We have to adjust it to potentially. I don't know how much money they could have maybe made, and then figure out what the average would be at that in that instance. What's 40 acres and a mule with inflation? That's what it would be. Do you know what reparations are, by the way?
Yes, I know what they are.
Okay.
How is, though, the concept of giving reparations in itself not racist? Let me finish. Because let's just say you had... No, let me finish. let's just say you have two black people, or one black family, one white family. Same. Yet that white family is going to have to pay the black family, regardless, just because of the color of their skin. How is that not racist?
You're right, dog. You fucking got me, brother. You got me. That's racist as fuck, dude. That's the good kind of racism, though. That's that shit I do like. Let's fucking do that kind of racism, dude. That's what I'm talking about.
But you won't answer the question.
No, I said no.
Racist?
I'm fully in favor of that sort of racism. Give me that fucking racism right there. Very good.
This is what I'm talking about. You actually will not answer any of the questions.
I just did. I said that's great racism. That's good racism. It's spicy. Mwah. Good stuff. I love that you don't think that like racism is playing a factor in has any sort of fucking historical relevance in the conversation about affirmative action, but you somehow think it's racist to want to enforce reparations, to pay reparations back to black people in an effort to, and I'm meeting you middle of the ground here, okay? I said, give reparations to black folk and we'll fucking end affirmative action. That won't finish all of the systemic issues. There will still be plenty of systemic problems that persist because that won't magically reform the criminal justice system. But I tell you that, and then you turn around and that's racist. So is there any way in your mind to correct racially charged wrongdoings of the past without any sort of racially charged corrective legislation? How can you correct racism or racist laws without other racially discriminatory not preventative measures, but racially discriminatory, in your words, legislation?
Yeah, but that assumes that America is still racist and that
No. This is for righting a wrong. Okay, a wrong that you and I both agree, right? We think you think slavery is bad, right? You're not gonna give me the fucking the conditions that slaves lived in wasn't that bad, and like you're not gonna do that meme, right?
Oh, it was wrong.
Okay. Oh, thank God. Okay, so you think slavery is wrong. Good stuff. Okay. So how do we right that wrong? Without writing any legislation that will single out black folk.
I would point this back to...
No. Answer my question. Don't fucking slip away from this. Answer my question. You keep telling me. I give you the respect and I answer all your questions. Answer my question. How do you write legislation to correct racist legislation of the past without singling black people?
Not because there is no institutional racism. And let me talk.
Wait, what? That's not an answer, dude.
Can I? If you let me talk, I'll answer.
Okay.
We're only in the South. If you look at the North, Chicago, New York, states with high black populations, Michigan.
Wait. Well, you think systemic racism does not exist? I told you that there was. Are you? Rosa Parks had a famous quote about this when she referenced the North. She said, "The promised land that wasn't so." What do you think she was referencing when she said the North was also not an area that was safe for black folk? It was certainly safe in comparison to some areas of the Jim Crow South. But what does that say to you, you think?
Okay, hold on. You want to talk about like anecdotal evidence? How is that not anecdotal evidence?
Rosa Parks' anecdotal evidence?
Was her opinion any more valid than mine?
Because do you know who Rosa Parks is?
At back of the bus.
What the fuck? Bro, what? Oh my God, dude, what the fuck?
See, this is what you.
Okay.
This is what you.
Okay.
This is what you've always done. Every time I give you a point, that's kind of
because it's insane. Rosa Parks is personal perspective in this is, of course, significant because it is a part of history at this point. Rosa Parks, when she says something like this, it is put inside of history books. It is now a part of history. You understand that, right? I think you're memeing. I don't think you're being like, it's certainly more valid than your perspective, since you weren't a black person that was historically important or historically relevant in ending the Jim Crow rights, the Jim Crow laws. You weren't a historically relevant individual in the South during the time of the civil rights movement. Like, this is literally, oh my God, dude. Okay, this is literally like saying Martin Luther King. Why would you reference Martin Luther King? His perspective is still anecdotal evidence. How is that any different than my perspective?
How is it? You tell me.
Do you really think that your perspective on racism in America is more significant than the things you learned? You're laughing, dude. You're fucking with me. Oh, such a son of a bitch. Fuck you, dude. There's no way. There's no way you seriously, you're memeing.
I'm not
oh my God. You're such a
really
bastard.
not.
I'm going to put this on fucking YouTube, you son of a bitch. Fuck you.
Go on YouTube.
You fucking bad. Get the fuck out of here. Oh my God. You're such a... Is this a fucking Destiny fan, dude? Be honest. Who is this? Is this like a... Are you a Destiny fan?
This is Blackie Seal.
You're not Blackie Seal. Shut the fuck up. Oh my God. All right. Bye, dude. I can't.
I love you. Give me a kiss.
Oh my God, dude. Get the fuck out of here. Holy shit.